Hello, hello. For some reason it's not popping up on the. Oh no, here it is. As you can tell, I'm not very good with technology. Jonathan is on his way. He is just making some food. Hello, Darkfield Carnivore. How are you today? Good morning. Hopefully it's not too early for you. Hopefully we get a couple more people. Get your questions in, and I'll try and answer some before he gets here. He was just doing an interview, so he's not had a chance to eat anything. So he has trusted me to start this up. How silly. I'm good, thank you. I've not long finished work, so I think I've been home about an hour. So I've managed to quickly eat, put the kids to bed, and then I'm here ready. Probably looking very tired. It's a long day on a Monday for me. How's your hill walks? Still a great view. Absolutely love it. I wish we had those kind of views, kind of like more local. We've probably got some somewhere, but it's a bit of a drive to kind of get to then walk around. I don't know. I see that quite pointless, driving to somewhere to walk. If you have to drive a while. Hello, Zbigniew. How are you? Thanks for joining. Jonathan is coming. Don't panic. It's not just me today. Don't think I'd do very well answering your questions if it was just me. I'm just looking at my one down here because there's a slight delay on the chat. So just checking that I'm getting them all. Got 5 people around already, apparently. Say hello. Ask your questions and I'll try and answer them before Jonathan gets it. If not, I will leave it for him when he arrives. How are you, Zbigniew? Are you okay today? I'm so rubbish at time zones. I never know what it is for everybody. I always ask Jonathan and he's like, oh, I'm not sure. How are you feeling after surgery? Still in good form? Oh, what does that mean? Let's see. Hello, lambs. How are you? Oh, there's Jerome. Add to stream.
Hey, Sophie.
Did I do it right? Hello. Oh, you can hear me. Good job.
I can hear you.
Oh, you're there. Jonathan is coming. He's just getting his dinner because he just had an interview. So he hasn't had a chance to eat. So they've all got me for now.
Does he get cranky if he doesn't get his dinner on time?
A little bit hangry, yeah. If he goes too long without eating, then you can tell he needs some food.
I was going to say he's not around right now, so you can really divulge his greatest secrets.
No, but he's going to watch it back.
Oh, that's fair. Okay.
But no, he's not too bad. But then I get it. If you're hungry, everything just kind of throws off, and it's not good. Like, it's not a nice feeling to be hungry all the time.
I get that.
It's a big Zbigniew, how are you going with your training? My training's going good. I'm doing the 1 set. I think that's what you do, don't you, Jerome? You do kind of 1 set per body part.
Yep.
I did that last week. I quite enjoyed it, actually. I'm going to do it again this week. Haven't managed to train today because I was at work all day. But no, pretty good. How's your training going, Jerome?
It's going well. I had legs today, which was extremely difficult. And I was really tired afterwards. I really needed to lay down and take a nap. And sometimes here in the studio, I'll take some yoga blocks that I have and I'll use one like a pillow on the floor and just set a phone alarm for like 15 minutes and sleep on the floor by the training equipment. But some days I live and die by those power naps.
Well, at least you get them in. I sadly don't get a chance for power naps.
Well, with 2 kids running around, plus working,
I could do with one. I think Jonathan said he had a nap today. He had a quick power nap today, apparently. Sheena's here. Hello. Oh, I'm glad you're doing well, Zbigniew. Darkfield Carnivore says, nice video on the 2 fatigue, Jerome.
Thank you. That was an older video, so I pinned a comment. There's a couple things that I did in that video that I shouldn't have done methodologically, but I'm going to start trickling out more training footage the closer I get to this competition. I've been a little hesitant with that.
Okay.
But sometimes, everyone thinks that we train hard, but myself included, but there's always a higher level that you can take that to.
Yeah.
So I'm also posting that kind of for my own accountability that, if I'm going to put it out there, then I need to meet or exceed a certain standard.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think posting workouts and, diet plans and all that, I think is really good for accountability because you put it out there. So then other people know what you're doing.
Yep.
So if you either don't fulfill to what you said you were going to do, then and people ask, you've kind of got nowhere to kind of hide. Whereas if you don't tell anyone, you can just not tell yourself, oh, it's fine. I don't need to train today.
Yeah.
But if you've told people, right, I'm going to do 5 sessions this week and all of that, and people are asking, can't really hide it then, can you? So it is quite good.
Sophie, I just wanted to say that your progress pictures that you've put in the group have been really inspirational.
Thank you.
It's shocking because, I've video chatted with you and Jonathan a few times. We've known each other for a few months now, but even now compared to where you were a few months ago, I can see significant changes in your face and your arms. And that's really motivating and inspiring to me. So thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you. That's so lovely. I think Jonathan put in the chat that I was looking at them last night while he was watching his podcast. It was too late to start a film, and I think he could see that I'm proud of myself and what I've come, but like he said, I'm still not satisfied. And like I was feeding the youngest the other day. I always forget which way it is. That way, like with a spoon. Yep. And my arm was obviously pointed outwards. Let me do it the other side. Pointed out, and you could see kind of a little bit of definition, like a little bit of a line.
Yeah.
And he then took a picture and sent it, and I was like, "Oh my god, yeah, you can." Obviously, you've still got like the bingo wings, as we call them, underneath, which are trying to go. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm noticing, slightly. But till I get to my goal, I'm probably not going to be happy.
Yeah.
I was so close to my first goal, literally 0.1 of a kilo away. And then me and Jonathan went out for date night, and then I had like a tablespoon of noodles and stuff in like a little bit of sauce. So obviously the scales skyrocketed 1.4 kilos. So I was like, oh, for goodness sake, I was so close. Bloody date night. Pain.
Mm-hmm. That scale can be just absolutely the worst sometimes.
Oh, I know. I used to get so fixated on it, so fixated, and I would then restrict the next day if it went up for no reason, as in I ate, on point. I would then restrict the next day, and it wasn't until learning the scales and like Jonathan saying, "Well, you slept like crap. Your hormones are all over the place. There's so many different factors." Since learning all that, now I'm like, oh, okay, I know why it went up. It's fine. It's not a problem. It's not the food. It's daily stresses. Mm-hmm. But it's got to teach people that, because I know probably a lot more women than men. I don't know whether it is like that, but we do get fixated on that number. And then when it doesn't go the direction we want, I think that's when a lot of people give up and go, oh, what's the point? Because they don't understand that actually there's more than one reason for that. It's not just the food you've eaten.
Mm-hmm. Sleep is huge, and the female clients I have, the amount of that their weight will fluctuate around their monthly cycles is crazy. So I try with most people to recommend just not even using the scale. And even then, I know you said you're not sure how guys are. I think, like the me and Jonathan's are probably a little bit different, but I don't think most guys really care.
No, probably not.
But I don't know. I'm so out of touch. So
I don't think they care as much as women of what it's saying.
Yeah.
I know that as women, I think because it's all social media, isn't it? It's all they put a picture out of what you should look like, and what's I always forget where here it is. What's beautiful and handsome and all that kind of stuff, which I think gets into people's heads to be like, oh, I need to look like that. When no, you don't.
Yeah.
But who have we got in the chat? We've got Arjan. I hope I pronounced that right. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Jonathan has just corrected me. Hello. 6 years later, and I'm still not happy. No, to be fair, I think even if I get to my goal weight and my goal body, I'm still probably not going to be happy. I'm a woman. Not until I can rock a Catwoman suit without bubbles. Yeah. We were just talking about the scales and how women get fixated on the numbers and whether men are like that too or not.
Tell them I'm 140 kilos of lean mass.
He's 140 kilos of lean mass, apparently. But Jerome was saying he kind of tells him to not even bother with the scales.
Yeah, I don't know if the scale's that important.
No, it's more how you look and feel, isn't it?
Well, I looked at diced to the eyeballs at 94, 95 kilos. But then if you saw me at 110 kilos, you'd think, oh, he's quite muscular.
Yeah.
So it's like 15, 16 kilos difference, but one looks drastically better than the other.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've blocked you out.
I don't need to be.
Oh, you don't want to be on it yet?
I've got a snack.
He's just having his dinner now. He'll be happy.
Cheese waffle and some salmon. Can't you see?
Oh,
and double cheese.
Sheena says the scales lie. Sometimes, yes. Get your questions in, folks. Just checking. I'm just going back checking.
Is it the usuals?
Yeah, the usuals, and now obviously ours.
My loyal friends.
Rick's not here though.
Rick's probably hunting ducks.
Lambs is here. Sheena, Darkfield Carnivore. Did you have any? Have you had clients today? What's the time for you? It's lunchtime, isn't it?
Yeah, so I've had 2 clients today. Monday and Tuesday are pretty light load for me, and then my Wednesday, Thursday, Friday seemingly end up being almost 12-hour days a day those days.
Oh wow!
And then I picked up an earlier client Friday morning, so Friday will probably be a 13.5-hour day. And it's interesting, like with the contest prep, between my work schedule being very later in the week loaded, my sleep has been awful, and I can tell that's kind of affecting the prep, and that makes it that much more important that I get those naps in, like I was telling you earlier.
With your yoga blocks.
Yeah, but Monday and Tuesday I usually write up most of my social media posts for Facebook, and then if you have a business page, you can schedule them to post throughout the rest of the week. And then I'm looking at different marketing and networking opportunities I can do locally throughout the rest of the week. So I have an event Wednesday night, so I kind of lump that into my work hours. So Wednesday will probably be 8 in the morning until 9 at night. Shake hands, rub elbows, pass out business cards, all that sort of thing that I despise doing.
Yes, but it's got to be done, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Jerome, doing God's work.
No, not that part of it. I feel like I'm whoring myself out when I do those networking events. I recognize the utility. I'm trying to build far more locally and be an active part of the community than I am trying to establish an online presence. But it's just the worst. I hate doing those events.
I hate doing that kind of stuff. And I've just remembered to click on the comment so it actually pops up on the screen. So as you can tell, I'm still a newbie at this. Says Sophie, you were right. I've started to film my training and people's reactions are strange. They are staring at me, God knows why. I think I don't know, it should be a bit more common now, people filming their gym stuff. It's not as...
Say it's for critical analysis of your sports performance. I don't think there's much problem with it as long as you're not like
blocking anyone.
If you're like doing a pose and videoing yourself, I think that's weird. I think if you're just filming a set, then you're putting your tripod down, you're putting your phone down after you've done the filming. I think that's fine. As long as you're not filming off people or like, it's not pointing in direction of people's sort of view, Yeah,
I mean, I don't know why people are staring nowadays. Like, so many people record their stuff in the gym. Like, so many people. So, I don't know. But keep doing it, Z. Don't let them stop you. It definitely helps with like progression and checking form and stuff like that.
Speaking of all like this, when I was in Poland, my brother for a stag do, I walked into like some sort of mini market, and the security guard in there was just standing like 5 feet behind me, watching me as I walked around the shop because he thought I was going to steal stuff. I was like, but he didn't pick on my brother or anything; he just picked on me.
Maybe you had that look.
I had that look.
You had that look of I'm going to nick something now. Do you film your stuff, Jerome? Your sets or anything?
Not so much anymore. I used to quite a bit, but that was when I was going to a conventional gym, and I would go extremely early in the morning at a time when there was basically no one there for the purposes of setting up a tripod and actually filming and recording. But that was years ago when I was still working in corporate America. So I would get up at 1:30 in the morning for my workouts, record my footage, go home and edit it, and then upload it. Take a nap while the footage was processing, and then head into work at 4 a.m.
Wow.
So I don't
Early
miss
start.
I don't miss those days.
No, I bet you don't. Jeez. That's the middle of the night.
I'm going to be filming videos with all the equipment that I have here in studio and how I typically go through a set. I've had one client offer, actually two, for me to record their workouts, but given how quickly I tend to move people from one exercise to the next, I don't want to mess around with trying to move a tripod while they're going from exercise to exercise. So it seems to me it makes more sense to a couple more weeks when I'm contest ready, then that'll be the time to film the demonstration videos so that, these videos that are on my channel are in me in good shape.
Could get one of those GoPros so you kind of wear it.
Yeah.
So then you don't have to faff with a tripod when you're filming your clients.
Yeah, Jonathan.
Show us your glutes.
What was that, Jonathan?
Show us your glutes.
No, nobody wants to see those right now.
They're not.
I mean, I put one picture on my business Facebook page for a Tushy Tuesday. So people that are creative can find that if they really want. But I don't think a lot of people want to see men's glutes for the most part.
I don't know. If they're good glutes, you never know.
Maybe Sheena.
Sure, Jonathan would love to see your glutes, Jerome.
Oh, yeah.
Well, when they're striated, and I'm sure I'm going to be picking Jonathan's ear, I'll probably send him some posing footage for critiques, because how you hold a pose, 10 weeks out is very different than how you hold it a week or two before, just based on the changes in body fat. So I'm sure I'll be blowing up his phone over the next couple of weeks.
I'm really excited for this.
Wonder if I'll get permission to have a little sneak preview. Gina says, make meat videos. The comments are insane. No questions from Darkfield Carnivore today. Not a problem. Declan made it.
Hey, Declan, how you doing?
Declan's a mutual friend of mine and Jerome's.
He's a good guy.
He's a good guy and a friend of the channel.
Lam says, is Jonathan's shirt with the muscle print in the laundry? Probably. He forgot to put it on in the tumble, so it's now drying now.
I don't do things.
Rick is still not here. That's very surprising for Rick, isn't it?
He had to work, I think. He left a comment, I believe, maybe like 2-3 hours ago. That
okay.
Today.
Just shows how bad I am at keeping up with the comments.
Today's been great, though, hasn't it? I got up at, 6:30?
Yeah, about 6:15. I woke up.
Did my stuff. Got ready for the day. What was ready first? Can you remember? Had breakfast. Then you came up to do something. And then I sent you back downstairs so I could get ready for work. Then I went back upstairs.
Then you came back upstairs when I left for work. And then I don't know what you were doing. Tinkering with your computer, I think. Having some technical issues. Twiddling the knobs like Ted does.
I did 3 hours of video stuff today, thumbnail making and uploads. And I did some social networking. Then I fell asleep for about half an hour.
He gets his power naps in. He's all right.
Then I had a snack. Then I did some other things. Oh, then I edited Arjan's video. And I edited Mark Strauss' video. I put them up.
Had a couple of consultations, didn't you?
I had 2 consultations.
Nice.
That was a pleasant experience. I spoke to a guy today, actually, put it a bit closer to me. I spoke to a guy today from, I think he's from the Netherlands, a really pleasant young man. And it's nice to speak to someone that, they're sort of young, but they're willing to learn. And he sort of said, what do you think about this towards training and what do you advise? I was like, if I'm honest, the best you can do with what you got is this, and this. He's like, okay, fine. How do I get in contact to coach you, to be coached by you? And I thought, yeah, you seem coachable and I'd like to work with him. So hopefully he obliges and he's interested in working with me, because I like people that apply themselves. He seemed like the sort of person that would like follow a plan. And, I'm not, as much as a coach is a mentor and kind of like a teacher kind of thing, you can't do the work for the person. He seemed like the sort of person that could actually do the work.
Yeah.
And he's a young lad, and he's got a good, strong business mind. So I mean, that would translate over to bodybuilding work ethic and discipline. So I really hope he takes on my coaching.
Yeah. I think what you don't want is a client who wants you to tell you everything, but then just doesn't really want to do it. They're kind of like not uncoachable, but they're just then harder than they need to be. I'm sure you've got plenty of them, or you've seen kind of plenty of them, Jerome, with your clients wanting the stuff, but just can't really be bothered to do it.
Well, fortunately for me, the nature of what I do is so localized to just the workout here in studio that I don't really do much with my clients outside of here. So when they're here doing their workouts, I can push them really, really hard. And then I give general guidelines, and kind of the rest of the week is up to them at that point. Jonathan knows, the amount of work that goes behind the scenes when you're coaching someone over the phone, over a Zoom conference. There's a lot that goes into that. And you're oftentimes in daily contact with that person, hearing about their hobbies and their rules, beliefs, values, and standards. It's a lot of work. So I'm fortunate in that regard that I don't get quite as involved at this moment with clients the way that you guys do.
Probably a good thing at the minute, isn't it?
I mean, I'll field generic questions, but if I were to, there's a certain line where the more specific and the more involved you get, that's almost a separate service that you provide. So my main concern with people here is just getting them the highest quality workout that I can with the constraints that they have, and then giving them some general guidelines to get them through the rest of the week.
Doing what you can with the time you have, in the space you have, the best you can to your ability.
Yep.
Sorry, Sheena, I forgot to say, Jonathan is eating, or he was eating, some salmon, cheese slices, I think they're cheddar ones, and a shuffle.
Gouda.
Oh, sorry, Gouda one. So Declan has a question for you, Jerome.
Sure.
It's kind of in two messages because it didn't fit in one. So following up on one of our previous discussions, you said if trying to cut/prep and training once every example 5 days, you might fast the last couple of days before the next workout. I have my next workout planned for tomorrow. Haven't eaten today. Should I just extend my fast, or is performance going to suffer?
Sure. I would say that that's really highly individualized. And I've spoke with Jonathan a bit, kind of this hypothetical idea that I have that I'm not doing for this contest prep. But given how infrequently I train, usually once every third day at the most frequent, I would be curious if I could slightly overeat on my training days, maybe a little bit into the next day, and then fast until that next workout. So I'm fueling the recovery, and then towards the tail end, I'm getting some of the benefits of fasting before my next workout. For me personally, I perform better when I'm training fasted. So dinner at night, I usually have 6 o'clock at night, and then I'll train maybe 8 or 9 o'clock the next morning. I feel best and I perform best on an empty stomach, but that's going to be really individualized for some people. Some people do a lot better training later in the day with a couple meals in their system. Some people need something 2 to 3 hours before they train, or an hour before they train. And some of that, not everybody handles prolonged fasting fairly well. So it's one of those things that, Declan, how much have you fasted before? What's your general experience been like with that? But at the same time, speaking for me, like I did a week-long fast and I had 0 decrease in performance. My numbers didn't go down at all. 7 days fasted with my strength training. But I credit that to how little volume I do. So I can't give a rigid answer to that, unfortunately. It's a hypothetical I'd like to try myself, training once every 3 to 4 days, eating maybe 5-6 pounds of meat in, a 24-hour period, and then fasting for 2 or 3 days before my next workout. But I wouldn't prescribe that until I tried it for myself. And I certainly wouldn't prescribe that for someone else unless I was seeing results that I think are far better than I would even expect to get.
Guys,
Yeah.
you'll like the conversation I have, which I'll upload probably next week, with Arjan Meyer. He's a Dutch gentleman, I believe, and he's a high-intensity trainer. He actually touched on the topic of almost like eating more after a workout as his appetite increases.
hmm
Then when he has 2 or 3 days off, he starts to eat slightly less as like time goes on. I know Jeremy and I spoke about that before, so that might be an interesting thing to look at in the future. I mean, I don't know if people have to fast. I don't. I mean, if you're looking at like quick body composition changes, yeah, you'll lose fat faster, but there's always the element of holding a bit of water as a result of the fast.
Yeah.
I mean, if I fasted right now for 3 days straight, I'd lose a lot of fat, but I wouldn't look better. My body composition would improve, but I wouldn't actually physically look better in the mirror. So if you're looking for an immediate effect to look better, I don't know if a long-term fast is useful.
Yeah, I think like Jerome said, it's all kind of independently. What's the word I'm thinking of? It's all for like each individual. Like we worked out at the start of my carnivore journey, my performance isn't as good fasted as it is once eaten. So I suppose, Declan, just got to do what works for you.
Yeah, and I generally feel better when I'm fasted. So like as your body changes, you often need to change how you're dieting. And people that are getting leaner, and I've seen Declan, transform his body. If you're starting to get near the low double digits, possibly high single digit body fats, I don't think anybody should be doing any kind of prolonged fasting at that point. I think it becomes more integral that you have more frequent feedings the leaner you get in most cases. If you normally, Declan, if you normally train with food in your stomach, I would break the fast probably at least the night before your workout, because you don't just want to have a big meal as a way to break a fast. You will probably rush to the bathroom if you do that. You need to be careful how you get out of prolonged fasts too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Wonderful. So hopefully that helped, Declan.
The consensus is clear.
Darkfield Carnivore says, does Bella pronounce her own dog's name incorrectly?
Yes, it's Gouda.
Gouda. Wait, how does she say it?
Have a good day.
Ah, okay.
I don't really care about the pedantics of like name calling, as long as they spell my name correctly, which is Jonathan, Jonathan, as dictated on Facebook recently.
Chris says, pretty new to this, but I've heard conflicting theories on whether an individual can build huge muscles without ingesting carbs once you're fat adapted. What is your opinion? Thanks. Jerome, do you want to go first?
I feel like I fielded the last one, so I don't want to hog all the first answer. So one of you guys.
That's okay. That was directed at you, the last one.
Yeah, to answer, yes, you absolutely can build muscle with zero carbohydrates. There is some literature to suggest it might be slightly advantageous to consume protein and carbohydrates, but I don't believe it. I haven't seen it in myself. I haven't seen it in my clients. If you're working out hard and you're really pushing that intensity and you're supplementing that with sufficient protein and sufficient fats for energy, and giving your body enough time to rest and recover, you absolutely can continue to build strength and build muscle with zero carbohydrate. Muscle is 78% water, 20% protein basically, and the rest minerals and lipids. There's not really any carbohydrate that actually composes the structural components of muscle.
Yeah, I think the same. I think provided you're eating enough fat in your diet, you can gain enough muscle to the point you've got enough protein spare from, any kind of gluconeogenesis you have, any kind of skin cell renewal, any hair, all that sort of background stuff that happens. As long as that requirement's met and you're having enough fat, so you have enough energy to actually train, get better, get stronger, I don't think you're going to have an issue. I don't have issues.
No, I mean, there's 2 people on this video that have built muscles already with no carbs, and I am building muscles without any carbs. They're still developing. They're still loading.
The only caveat I'd say to this is, for example, someone like Eddie Hall, if he's trying to go from 160 kilos with whatever muscle to 200 kilos, he his satiety signals won't let him eat that much food to gain that much more weight and muscle.
Mm.
So this is a theory we have no way of knowing until an extreme strongman does it. But I don't think that you can get really, really big, or at least get heavy, without adding in carbohydrates in your diet. I can say for myself, of my stats, yeah, I had around 90 kilos of fat-free mass, about 5 kilos of fat on my body, pre-contest, and that was in the absence of plant foods. I had some carbs, but that was in the form of dairy and eggs, so it wasn't like I was adding in sugar and fruit pastels and rubbish. So yeah, I mean, if you're really trying to expedite the process of gaining muscle, if you have enough dairy in your diet, that will help a lot. Lots of leucine in that will trigger a lot of protein synthesis if you need more. It's insulogenic, which is quite anti-catabolic, which means your recovery may be slightly better. Yeah, you can do it just with dairy if you really want to get some extra carbs in and you tolerate dairy well.
Yeah.
Very good.
I hope that answers your question, Chris. Obviously, if
Good
not,
question.
pop another one in. Excellent question. Declan says, I always train fasted and have done a few 72-hour dry baths.
Yeah, 72 dry is pretty hardcore. That's tough. I've gone a stretch longer than that dry. If you're feeling good and you're getting enough water and electrolytes, I don't know, you're getting a little bit leaner, and I've seen your progress photos, so I would follow, your appetite. If you're getting some hunger signals tonight, get that meat and get that fat in you, and I'm sure you'll have a great workout tomorrow. Otherwise, there's something to be said for N=1 anecdotal experience too. Sometimes I think Dr. Chafee always talked about how he liked, when he was doing carnivore with rugby, how he liked going into those games fasted because he thought it gave him kind of an aggressive edge. If you're feeling good, maybe try fasting. If you're getting hungry, I would have dinner tonight. I don't think it's going to be too big of a difference either way.
I don't like the idea of following numbers for fasts. I think they can elicit quite a strong binge eating response for some people. I know of myself, even if I, for example, fast for 24 hours, I'm thinking, regardless of what my body tells me, I'm thinking, I've earned extra food now.
Yeah.
I think your body has a way of balancing itself out. I think that fasting is a useful tool, but if you're using it to accelerate the speed that you're losing fat, if that is your goal, just bear in mind what you're doing over the 24/7 period is going to be of a greater determining factor of what your body composition will end up at. Not so much the fact that you did 72 hours of not eating.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, what was I doing? Because I was fasting at the start, but I didn't fast, so I would only eat between 12, like noon, and 8 p.m.
Yeah.
And then that would be it. So that probably doesn't really count as fasting, does it? As if you could do like a dry fast kind of thing.
Well, it's difficult to explain. So fasting is when you're absent of food. So it depends whether your digestive system's clear or your muscle glycogen of the food that you've already consumed is empty or reduced significantly. Technically speaking, a fast you're in a fasted state when you're empty of muscle glycogen or it's very low level. Typically, this doesn't go below about 60% from what I have read. So you never actually end up fully muscle glycogen depleted because you would die.
Yeah.
Your body won't let you do that. So it'd rather catabolize muscle tissue to produce the glycogen that it needs to keep an appreciable amount of glycogen in it. I think of a fast, just generally speaking, the way people talk about it, I don't think it's harmful to say, I've been fasting for 16 hours. I don't think that's a detrimental thing to say in terms of like nuance and understanding the nomenclature and meaning.
I just think, like I say, it's important to listen to your body. And if after 45 hours your body is saying, I need something, it's not worth the risk of pushing it the extra 3 or however many hours just to get it to a certain number. If your body's saying, I need something, then you've got to kind of listen to it, haven't you, really?
Yeah, your body doesn't have a clock on it. I mean, it has a circadian rhythm, as in an exposure to light, but this isn't on a timer. Your body doesn't know seconds. It knows reaction to the external environment and the stimulus that is provided from that environment. So, I mean, numbers are useful as guides and they give people a goal. But like Sophie said, if you're feeling rough after 70 hours, but you want to make it to 72, just stop.
Yeah.
Don't risk your health as a result of it. Especially if you're doing a dry fast, that's quite a definitely a challenging thing to do, but I do admire anyone that is
Mm.
able to try that, as Jerome and Declan have already done so.
And,
Very
and
good.
don't train right after a dry fast. You probably need at least 12, 16 hours to really rehydrate before you even think about training.
Mm.
And then just to kind of piggyback on what you guys said, I think the real goal with fasting should be to try and improve some markers of health so that we know our body's natural signals are somewhat reliable arbiters of what we should do. Um, we don't want to be a slave to food the same way we want to necessarily be a slave to the clock. So yeah, I agree. If you're hitting 24 hours fasted just for the arbitrary goal of hitting 24 hours, that's fine if it's kind of a one-off experiment that you just want to see how your body reacts. But if you're constantly staring at the clock and telling yourself that you can't eat until a certain time, you're still a slave to that food, even though you're not eating at that point. And part of what we should be doing in terms of trying to improve our physical health is also improving our mental and emotional health and our relationship that we have with food.
Yeah, Sophie and
Yeah.
I went to a buffet the other day, and I was actually really well behaved. I think I mentioned it to Drew. Usually when I go to a buffet, I think I'd eat carnivore, but then I'd have like loads and loads of sauce just to kind of like add a bit of extra in, just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Because it's there. And I actually had the meat, the fish, the soup, whatever it was, like the meat soup, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But I didn't take the mick at all. And I was like, this is quite a profound experience for me, because typically I would have went overboard a bit. I would have added more sauce, more sort of.
Yeah. Or gone up for another one.
I went to bed that night and I slept all right.
Yeah.
I woke up fine. I didn't feel inflamed.
Nice.
I was like, wow, I actually managed to achieve something here. And a lot of people aren't very upfront about this. Most people online, the influencers, do cheat on their diet. But, you know, we have to provide an honest experience. My honest experience was, before I probably would have caved. This time I didn't.
No.
So something about my mindset towards my health and my body composition has improved. And I just hope other people are able to aspire to and achieve the same thing. So just stick around, enjoy the ride, and make the most of what you can do with the tools you have.
Yeah. And like I think we've said before, obviously, like coming off, you know, sometimes you can't eat true carnivore everywhere because not everywhere caters to it, and you're going to have stuff that isn't. And providing it doesn't affect your health, like detrimental, I think you got a little bit puffy ankles, but that was it, really, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Nothing
that's
compared to normal. And I think it's okay. Like at the start of my carnivore journey, if I would have what we'd probably call an off meal, I would then be kicking myself to be like, right, well, I must restrict the next day, or, you know, because I've done bad. And actually, no, I was just enjoying my time with family, and there was nothing I could do. It was either not eat anything and stick out like a sore thumb, or just do the best I could and, you know, have that tiny bit of sauce because that's the only option, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sophie's different to me. She's I'm more of a sort of person that will go against the grain for the sake of going against the grain. So I'd be the person sat there like a sour lemon
with nothing, which you have done. You went out with your mum and your nan, and they all had a meal, and he sat there with with a black coffee and a Diet Coke.
I was quite happy, yeah.
And I was like, I mean, I could do that, but I just can't be dealing with the aggro of the, you need to eat something. Are you going to eat something? Yeah. Like the whole time, it just takes the enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
My health is my craft. My body is my my gimmick. So
yeah,
if I can cater for those two things, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
It might disappoint other people, but I don't think it really disappoints them because they know I'm trying to achieve something better for myself, which is ultimately, I'm the person that has to live in this objective experience of the universe each day. So if I feel better about myself for achieving a certain goal, whether that be rational or not, then
I think
good.
I think if your body didn't react the way it does to non-carnivore foods, you might not feel as bad, you know, doing it, and then you would have the meal out with your mum and whoever. But because your body reacts the way it does, sometimes it's just not worth the pain that you're then in and the suffering just for the sake of it. When, like you say, if you're happy sat there with a drink, why not?
Yeah.
Got a question from Ben.
Hello, Ben. Nice to see you.
Is muscle size measurements a better tool to track progress versus tracking weight/reps due to neuromuscular adaptation factors? I'm still confused in this area.
So it depends on what you're trying to progress. I mean, if you're trying to progress your weight, your strength, then you're going to be using weights. If you're trying to progress your size, the mirror is going to be your best metric. The only problem with the mirror is you're subject to your own subjectivity. Then if you're looking at your measurements, they could be altered by lots of factors. So, for example, if you're run down, if you're not slept very well, you could be holding water under your skin. You could be bloated, have a distended gut. Digestion might not be very good. You might be puffy if you're inflamed, if you've eaten some foods you're not meant to eat. That can all vary. But your strength level, assuming your recovery is on point, can be measured quite effectively, and it can be standardized using your training variables. So I think that strength is probably a better indicator of whether you're progressing or not. How do you know that? Well, you're not going to gain an inch in your arms in a month's time, but you might gain 2.5 kilos on a lift in a month's time. You can measure that, and if you can repeatedly do that every time you do the lift, that kind of indicates to me that something's happened there. And whether or not it's neuromuscular or not, I think it's up for debate, really. But I'll probably look at the strength aspect of it first. I mean, anecdotally, I know when I've competed in the past and when I've got to, 4% body fat, when my strength's gone down, typically I've lost that sort of pumped feeling, that look, that appearance of being muscular slightly. Now, when I'm in the off season, I'm gaining strength, I tend to look more muscular. So, I think if you're choosing one of those things, it's better than not choosing one thing. Ideally, choose both things to measure.
Yeah.
I'll probably just look at strength because the weights don't really lie, and you can always squeeze those tape measures up a little bit more or make them a bit bigger or whatever you like. So
yeah, you can alter a tape measure, can't you?
They say, was it 100 pounds is always 100 pounds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jerome?
Yeah, Jonathan made a lot of good points, and I agree.
You have to.
I track literally everything with my workouts, the weight that I'm using, the time under load that I'm using. I think that's one of the best measures, but again, it's just one tool. The problem with taking regional measurements is if you put a little bit of fat on it, it'll probably reflect in the measurements. If you lose a little bit of body fat, you might think that your legs or your arms are getting smaller, and they're not necessarily getting smaller. And it takes a long time to build quality muscle. If you wanted to gain 10 pounds of real solid muscle over the course of a year, you're only gaining a couple grams of muscle on a daily basis. And then to take a regional measurement to try and reflect on that really, really slow, subtle process, it would take probably at least 3 months before you'd see a real measurable difference in one location. You feel like you're just measuring your biceps or just measuring your legs. I agree with what Jonathan said. Both are ideally good tools. And if you can measure both, and that'll kind of give you a big picture. But it's one out of many tools in your arsenal to measure progress. How you look in the mirror, how your clothes fit, how your numbers are doing in the gym, regional measurements if you take them, skin fold pinch calipers if you use them. If you have one of those bioimpedance scales that runs the electrical current through you to approximate body composition. These are all things that you can use to try and, it's like a piece of a jigsaw puzzle to get some kind of clue of the bigger picture. But don't live or die by measurements. But if you had to pick one, I would objectively and scrupulously track your workout performance.
That's what I said.
Funny, isn't it? It's almost like
ding, ding, ding.
You two are on the same page. Well, hopefully that.
Before we go live, he and I run a script for the entire.
I thought so because he does take a long time before we go live, and I do wonder what he's doing.
He's checking out.
It's fine. There's me thinking it was something I should be worried about.
Deborah's turned up on the scene.
Well, I hope that answers your question, Ben. If not, obviously pop something else in the chat.
That was a good question, actually.
That was a good question.
Yeah, not many people would think about tracking progress. So they just say, how do I get better? It's like, you have to have a goal here. How are you going to measure your goal? That's a good question.
And you need to know what you did before to know whether what you're doing now is better or not.
Very good.
So.
Yeah, I like that question a lot.
Yeah. Hello, Dan.
Hey, Dan.
Declan says, well, I will listen and go eat some fatty beef. Cheers. You are welcome.
Enjoy it.
Enjoy that. Intermittent feeding. Thinking, question. Oh, I thought that was the same person then. Question from Dan. Thinking of starting. Oh, God,
a
a mesocycle next month, and I plan on trying to add carbs, i.e. up to 100 to 200 grams of rice, one time per week for 2 to 4 weeks, and then twice a week to see how it'll influence looks. And I'm guessing that's the same question. Yeah. And to see what kind of impact it'll have on ketosis and
gluconeogenesis.
The remainder is going to carnivore. Outside of those specific days, I'll be testing that. So I'm guessing kind of what's your thoughts on that? I'm guessing is what they're saying.
So cyclical carb feeding, intermittent carb feeding, to affect the appearance of full muscles. I think it's. Well, I'll just say quickly. I think it will have an impact. You'll build up inflammation anytime you increase your insulin levels through carbohydrates or other means, which may make you look better, but it may also make you look worse if you hold more water as a result of that inflammation. I think that the feedings will be frequent enough with the rice that you shouldn't have a digestive upset because you're not completely changing your gut microbiome over that period of time. It's worth trying as an experiment, but obviously I'm not going to advocate for carbohydrates in a diet from plant sources because that's against my nature and it's against a proper human diet.
I suppose we all have to do our own experiments, don't we?
Yeah.
And it's providing you're not putting too much harm into your body, then. Yeah,
rice is quite innocuous for a lot of people, so I think it's one of the safer things to eat.
Hopefully it's white rice. Yeah. I think that's better than whole grain, isn't it?
Yeah, he's probably a bro like us. He probably would eat something like white rice if he had to.
What do you think, Jerome?
Document it, see how it goes. Similarly, I could see possibly some scenarios where a fast metabolized source of carbohydrate may be advantageous for some around performance. I know some people like a small bolus of carbohydrates either before their workouts or before some kind of athletic event. I don't think it's necessary. And I think if you're long-term fat adapted, I don't think it's necessary at all. And I think you can get enough glucose via gluconeogenesis. But you can be in ketosis, but not be fat adapted. So really, unless you're really, really, really low carb or zero carb for probably at least 6 months, your numbers may be a little bit better with a little bit of carbohydrate. But ultimately, you're going to have to see how your body responds. But most cases, I wouldn't advocate for carbohydrates.
I guess you're prolonging the opportunity or time that you can become more fat adapted. So every time you put in more carbohydrates, you're extending that time frame that it's going to take you to become properly fat adapted. So it's counterintuitive if your end point is to say, look, I'm going to do a carnivore diet with no rice and no fruit or whatever. Yeah, it'll be worth an experiment just to see how it gets on, just to see what happens.
Yeah, if you do it, kind of let us know. Keep us up to date.
I'd be really curious about that.
Ben says, makes sense. I will incorporate both. Thank you.
Very good.
Good. Don't worry, we figured it.
We got it.
We're all right. He said, fair enough. Yeah, white rice, I'll be documenting it. Good.
Awesome.
Very good.
I think it's important to document kind of anything you do, whether it's training experiments or like obviously diet experiments, because then you won't know whether it's doing anything or what it is doing.
I have a question for you two guys if there's no other questions in the chat.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, there's nothing else at the minute.
Sure. Do you have any tips that you guys would give for just the average person who's exercising as a way to increase intensity? Because if you're going to do, 2 sets-ish per body part, kind of like what you and Bart advocate, you have to make those 2 sets count. So how would you get kind of the average person to raise their intensity?
So is that from a standpoint of motivation or a standpoint of teaching them how to reach maximal intensity?
I was thinking more of the latter, I suppose.
Okay. So how to reach it. So with your training, Sophie, when if you're going to absolute failure, muscular failure, you can't move the weight. What are you looking at in your training perimeters as a guide to say, okay, I've reached this intensity? What would you be looking at doing? So say, for example, you're doing like shoulder press and Swift machine. say you're doing like, I don't know, 8, 10 reps, whatever.
Hmm.
What are you looking at on that 9th or 10th rep or 8th rep, whatever?
So basically, to know that I've hit muscular failure is when I can't push that weight up anymore. Whether it's gone a quarter, it's gone half, or it's even gone 3/4. If I cannot get another full rep out of it, I know that I've peaked. I've hit the failure point.
So by definition, is that technical muscular failure or absolute muscular failure?
That's technical, isn't it? Because the form's then not right.
Yeah. So the reason why, like Jerome rightly said, is like the 2 sets thing is under the assumption that most people don't know how to go or cannot go to absolute muscular failure.
Yeah.
That is why you'd say to someone, do 2 sets of technical muscular failure. Absolute muscular failure for 2 sets, quite tricky. I mean, I tried it the other day. I did it with everything. I think I got 8 reps, then I got 6.5, 5.5.
Yeah.
That was the point where everything was ended on a static with a slow negative to the point where I couldn't actually hold it in place anymore.
Yeah.
My muscles are really sore from that, and I would not be able to recover from doing that very frequently at all. So that would tell me doing something like Jerome would be doing with, say, the 1 set would be more applicable. Yeah, I think, yes, that's technical muscular failure, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you can't lift it safely and the weight doesn't budge when you're pushing it.
And the form isn't correct.
So is it fair for me to equivocate concentric muscle failure with technical muscle failure? So I'm with you. It's absolutely important to maintain proper form at all times, but I guess I've never heard that terminology, so I just want to make sure I'm on the same page.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you can. I find when someone's not able to push the weight anymore, some ancillary muscle groups may come to play more to hold that static position.
Yep.
To which case, if, for example, you're doing a shoulder press and it's all front delt mostly front delt, and say you're pushing, the shoulder's given up now, it's not going anywhere. When you're in biomechanics, it might be your triceps to give up as well. But when you can't hold the static anymore, that can be problematic because the ancillary muscles might be the ones that are involved in catching the weight to prevent yourself from, dropping the weight on you.
Yeah.
When it's in a static hold position. These sort of phrases are they're a bit hit and miss. It's very hard to sort of exactly determine what means what.
Yeah.
The best thing we can do is just give an outline of what we think it is.
Yeah.
And whether people agree or not, and just show them what that is in with what the parameters of that would be. Then show them what the alternative would be, which is not muscular failure, or the alternative to that, which is absolute muscular failure. So it's kind of the middle between the two, I think.
Yeah. I think you can also kind of get them maybe because it was definitely when I was starting my fitness journey, I thought I was hitting as close to muscular failure, but I think is it the brain? The brain stops you before your body does.
Yep.
The brain has safety mechanisms to prevent you from activating all muscle fibers.
Whereas now, I push a lot harder, and I know when my brain's going, "Now you can't do this one." I'm like, "Nope, shut up." I could do another one, and sometimes doing like a what do you call them, rest pause. When you just hold it for 2 seconds, and then let's try again. When you've then done that, and then you can't, then you know that you've hit it. Whether getting them to maybe try the rest pause as well to see if they've got that one extra.
Yeah.
Extra one in there.
The difference between technical muscular failures, I've just defined it, and absolute muscular failure in terms of causing muscle damage, muscle soreness, neural fatigue. It's quite tremendous. It will halve your volume, I think, if not more. I found, it's tough. All my muscles right now are sore that I did the workout the other day. So I actually split my workout from upper lower now to push pull legs. I'm going to try out this week, just because it was so difficult doing upper lower the way I was doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I said to Jerome at the beginning when he was making your food that I did my 1 set experiment last week, and I'm going to do that this week. So I did push pull legs, and then I did a full body of again just 1 set of each. And I think it worked quite well actually. Like I still felt cream crackers after the end of it, and my shoulders were sore on those days and the legs, and so it was still doing something.
people always trying to be perfect with
Mm.
these different rep and set schemes, and
Yeah.
absolute versus technical muscular failure, rest pause sets, forced reps, negatives, static hold, whatever it is. All these things change all the time because we're not the same human.
Yeah.
Like Jerome's rightly said, like with his stuff to me in the past, he said like, I'm doing about 3 sessions a week of about 5 sets or something like that, and it might be that I'm doing on average 3.2 sessions.
Yeah.
Might be 2.9 sessions over a span of time. Getting too wrapped up in the numbers isn't as important as maximizing your training, giving yourself the stimulus, allowing yourself that time to recover between workouts so you can allow that adaptive process to take place.
I think what we kind of said on the Facebook post is back to basics. I think a lot of people really complicate training because I guess so many people say different things of, you do 8 reps max, or you do 1 set, or you do 4 sets, and just go back to basics. Do you know what I mean? Train hard, do it, give it your welly, and give it everything you can, and then try and do a little bit more.
If there, just one small point, if there is a slight benefit to going to absolute muscular failure compared to technical muscular failure, I would think it's really marginal at best, but it makes a significantly greater inroad to your recovery ability that sometimes you might need at least an extra day because of it. I like taking it that far mentally because I like the feeling of knowing that I pushed myself as hard as I could. But I think for a lot of people, sometimes going that far can create too deep of an inroad depending on how often you want to exercise. So I don't think most people should necessarily take it that far.
Jerome and I are just masochists, and we want to struggle and cause ourselves pain.
Excellent question, though. Thanks, Jerome.
Yeah.
Start for Carnivore. I think it says to your question, slow the reps down, pauses. Yeah. Does he mean something like static holds or pauses? Yeah. So a question from Dan. Good point. Nice that you touched that. How does an exercise look like in that concept from the warm-up to the end of the exercise? Obviously, your muscular failure. You did that one on your YouTube, haven't you? You've got a video on that. Yeah,
so I initially thought we had to warm up in terms of do the exercise we're about to perform in, say for example, you could do 20 reps with a weight. You might do 10 repetitions, easy, move the weight. I think I'm always thinking now to refine it more and be more minimalist. I think Jerome sort of explained to me recently, which is news to me and kind of makes sense to me now, is that you actually gain the warm-up ability or phase when you're lifting the weight at the start. For example, when you're doing 8 to 10 repetitions of anything or whatever amount it is, the first 5 or 6 of those are the warm-up.
Yeah.
Because you're training safely, you're not swinging the weight. There's control throughout the whole movement. There's no inertia. That can be an effective warm-up. And especially if you're using kind of extended times tension. So, for example, you're not doing 1 up, 1 down, or 1 up, 2 down. You're doing more like 1 up or whatever amount, and 4, 5, 6 down. That is the warm-up.
Yeah.
And I noticed this myself. I did this the other day for a push session, and I noticed I had no sort of inkling or worry in my head that I was not warmed up thoroughly, because the first exercise that I did was the warm-up.
Yeah. I think it then uses your energy then, doesn't it? So then you kind of, your other sets aren't going to be as good because you've just used them up in your warm-up.
It's what we call in bodybuilding, we call it a feeder set or a primer set. I think they use that in powerlifting a lot. But in bodybuilding, I think you're trying to do something quite specific here. Building muscle is really hard. I think if you're, as Jerome keeps saying about the, sort of cutting into the like almost like inroading into the recovery phase. If you're adding things on, you're making the margin of error for recovery more difficult to achieve.
Yeah.
And that extra 10 repetitions out of the 20 that you might possibly be able to do may cut into your next set. But at the same time, it may prime you for the next set if you're trying to become stronger. So I think that sort of thing is more useful if you're trying to strength train more so with the focus of being stronger rather than more muscular. That's kind of my own ramblings, my own thoughts. I don't really know the answer to that question, but that's kind of what I'm thinking right now.
And you have got a video on your YouTube of muscular failure, haven't you?
Yeah.
If you want to go onto his channel
Yeah,
and check that out.
I'll put some more up, and to kind of piggyback, I've had both experiences, kind of what Sophie was saying, where I think you can warm up too much to the point where it detracts from your performance. If you're starting to get, if your muscles are starting to burn and feel slightly fatigued to where like your repetition cadence is slowing down, if you're lifting relatively conventional, you're probably starting to get past a warm up set at that point. The whole point of a warm up is to get mentally and physically prepared for your working set or working sets. And in that regard, you should warm up as little as possible until you feel that you're mentally and physically ready for that set. I'm a big proponent of very slow repetition cadences. So for me, the first couple of repetitions do serve as that warm up. Depending on the lift, if I was doing a squat, a deadlift, a bench press, and I was lifting concentrically explosively and then even lowering slowly over like 4 to 5 seconds, I would do probably at least 1 to 2 warm-up sets. And those warm-up sets would be like 2 to 3 reps tops. Something maybe half as much as my working set, 2 to 3 reps, then get maybe 75% of my working set, 1 to 3 reps. And I would probably wait 2 to 3 minutes between these warm-up sets and then 2 to 3 minutes before the warm-up and my working set. But for most exercises, if you're doing something on a machine, I don't think you really need to warm up. I think those first couple of repetitions serve as the warm up in that case.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully that answered your question, Dan.
I'll just say quickly, because this is Carnivore Ramblings, hosted by Sophie today.
Apparently so.
I think that the warm up starts as soon as your last workout finishes.
Yep.
I'm immediately thinking about my next workout as soon as I finish that last workout. It might be that it's 2 to 3 or even 4 days gap between it.
Yeah.
But I'm priming myself for it in my head.
You're then mentally getting ready for it as well, then, aren't you?
Yeah, mind over matter. I mean, if I think now, if I look at Jerome's face and think, I hate this guy, I'll punch him really hard, my body will create a hormonal response to maximize that impact. The same thing's true if you're training. Your mind is a very powerful thing, and an example of this is how Eddie Hall had some kind of like psychological programming prior to his 500 kilogram deadlift.
Yeah.
To elicit maximal stress response from his brain. So when he came to the platform to do that lift,
he was ready.
He had no other option but to lift it. Yeah. There's nothing left on the table.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. Your mind is very powerful, and I think positive thinking, when you go into the gym, if you think to yourself, I'm going to smash this workout, I can get my personal best or whatever it is, I think you're going to then do it. But if you go in thinking, oh, I'm not strong today, I can't do this today, then I think your performance is going to go down, because you're, like we've said, mind over matter. You're going into it with a negative thought, so you're going to get a negative outcome.
I apologize for interjecting. Would you mind if we skipped ahead a little bit to Nathan's question? I've got to take off in like 2 or 3 minutes, but it addressed it to me, so I wanted to answer that before.
There
I apologize.
Not a problem.
No,
Jerome, do you perform crush gripping and pinch gripping TSC?
So a TSC is timed static contraction. It's isometric exercise performed for generally 90 seconds. I don't do pinch grip, but I do crush gripping, either with like a rolled up towel or a rolled up. I have a heavy duty toe strap in the back that I use for some other TSC stuff. So I'll do grip work with that 90 seconds TSC, but I'll also do wrist flexion and extension, because if you're taking a towel and you roll it really thick, you can put one wrist in flexion and one in extension, like you're trying to wring it out, and you can do that for 90 seconds. Then collect yourself, and then you can do it the other way. So it's a really good way to get grip strength plus forearm flexion plus forearm extension in a way that's very time efficient.
Fantastic. Never thought to do that, really. Wonderful. I hope that answers it, Nathan.
I apologize. I've got to pick up my daughter from school. Thank you,
guys.
Not a problem.
Jonathan.
Well, thanks for coming on, Jerome.
Having me on.
I'll let you go, and I'll catch up with you later. Yeah, and hopefully your daughter's okay. Send her my love.
Oh, thanks for joining the ramblings today.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye, Jerome. Right, where did we get to? We did that one.
Sophie's twiddling the knobs again.
I'm twiddling and I don't know what I'm doing. You shouldn't have left me in charge of technology. That's the problem. Mark, right back to you. What about using creatine monohydrate instead of carbs for muscle volumization? What do you think?
You won't get an exponential increase in muscle volumization if you have creatine in a supplemental form. At least if you're getting enough red meat in your diet and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the volumization effect is that potent. I think oftentimes people mistake the fact that these things are often loaded with sugar. So it'll be, if you remember muscle tech, cell tech back in the day, that would be sugar with creatine. It'll be the sugar that's causing the inflammation, which gives you that volumization appearance. I think if you have a deficiency in creatine, or I say deficiency, I mean a lesser amount than what is maximally held within your body, then I think that there may be some indication that you'd have less volumization to your muscles. But I don't think it's going to be that drastic. Was that all the question?
That was all the question, yeah. Wonderful. I hope that answers it, Mark. Dam says, yeah, I see. What I usually base myself on is on signals I get from my body and tend to keep the numbers primarily as reference to track progress. Wonderful. Darkfield Carnivore is off for a walk today on the beautiful hill.
Good luck.
16 kilos. Go on, smash it.
Have a lovely walk uphill.
Lovely stroll.
Maximise it.
Go in positive, Darkfield Carnivore. Go in positive. Dan says, for instance, rather than reaching a specific number, I can tell how far I am from not being able to get another rep, be it 3, 2, or 1.
Yeah, that's the reps in reserve thing. I don't like doing that for myself.
Okay.
I think if you're holding a weight, for example, you're doing a standing dumbbell curl, and you're saying I've got 3 reps in reserve. If you gave it like an extra 2 seconds rest between each repetition, that 2 reps in reserve might be 3 reps in reserve. You know, I think, but then most people like ourselves, Dan, are standardizing our form, our technique, our approach to training, so it might not apply. But I think the reps in reserve thing is reserved for people like us that know how to apply it and know how to be strict with what our training parameters are.
Wonderful. Chris says, speaking of exercise performance, there was a trend where bodybuilders were working just the stretch portion of their exercises, especially curls. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's some evidence to suggest that long-term stretching of the Golgi tendon of a given muscle can increase muscle growth. However, this is very, very, very long-term tension. And the reason why they believe this was the study they did on some bird creature, and they basically spread its wings and got them to stretch their wings out for it was like 3 days or something. They found that had some sort of fascial release to the muscles, which meant that they could allow themselves to gain more muscle tissue. It sort of like freed up space, apparently. That's the hypothesis, the theory. But outside of that, we know that we're about 30% stronger in the eccentric or lowering stretch portion of the movement when it comes to weightlifting. If we emphasize that period of the lift, we can be sure that we're stimulating more muscle because we have more strength to exaggerate in that portion. I don't know if stretching beyond the point of active range of motion is useful. I think there is an active range. I don't know if going, say for example, it's a chest press back down here. If you got a chest press back here, I don't know if going from there to there is going to be a benefit or not. I honestly don't think it will. I think it can almost cause or potentiate more injuries. So I wouldn't really focus in that regard. However, I do sort of stand by the principle that we should lift somewhat controlled but explosively. So I don't mean throw the weight up for the sake of throwing it up. I mean using your muscles to contract the weight from A to B in an accurate range in a relatively quick sort of speed. That's the way I like to train. I think then you can sort of lower the weight a bit slower, and it's going to be quite beneficial. And how slow you lower that weight, how long you spend in that stretched sort of position, it depends. The way I quite like to train at the moment is I like to exaggerate the last 20% of the eccentric movement. So say, for example, it takes me 5 seconds to go from the top of the rep to the bottom rep in terms of lowering. I might spend 3 seconds of that doing 80% of the lowering, then 1 or 2 seconds of the very last 20% of that. These are just like generic numbers, but I hope you understand the premise of what I'm saying is you deliberately reduce the stretch reflex part of the lowering part of the movement. It's not that you're timing it, but you're just actively, consciously trying to reduce the chance of excess momentum or stretch reflex.
I hope that answers your question.
Sophie was thinking the same thing.
That's exactly what I was going to say. He just said it for me. So there's no point me saying the same thing. We're going to wrap this up in a few minutes. So kind of last chance saloon. Dam has then put, I'll consider the set worth it if the failure is from the muscle I'm targeting rather than, say, my arms getting weaker before my chest during a bench press or my heart giving in first.
That's sensible, yeah. That's safe.
Yeah. On the reps in reserve, yeah, I don't like doing it as well. I meant that we can tell how far off we are from failing rather than aiming for a number and ending up sacrificing form or other aspects.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we have that safe margin of training.
Yeah.
If we can do 10 repetitions safely and get quite close to failure, fine. Now, if it's going to be 11 repetitions but risk injury, dropping the weight on our head, that's kind of a point where you might say, okay, I did 1 rep in reserve.
Yeah.
But then you take note of that and you say, I did this weight. It was effectively lifted. I didn't hurt myself. It was safe. I was pretty close to failure.
Yeah.
You know in your head what you've done there. So that's a effective notation mark to make with your training in terms of your note taking, definitely.
Yeah. And definitely then make note, like we've said, keep a track, write it down, and then for the next time that you do that, you'll know what your previous benchmark is. Chris says, perfect, thanks again. You are welcome.
Brilliant.
Tam says, especially considering what you and Sophie said earlier as well, where our brain will be trying to prevent us from doing it harder. I mean, I don't blame it. Yeah, our brain will definitely kind of say, this is the last one, before our body goes, no, this isn't the last one, you're fine. So you do have to kind of ignore that, because I would stupidly listen to the brain when I first started training. And when I thought, this is getting hard, I must be done, I would then be done. Whereas now that I've got my home gym and I'm training, I definitely push more, knowing that actually my brain is saying that you're done before the body's giving up. So I push more to the point where I'm close to just like dropping on the floor from the squats, or having the weights kind of fall on me, obviously, before they do. So yeah, definitely the brain tries to trick us quite a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah. I don't know, I can get away with a lot in the gym, it seems.
Well, you've had more gym experience than me. I've only really been, I trained 2020 to 2021, but I did part cardio and then a little bit weight, so it's kind of rubbish training.
I spoke to Casey Ruff from Boundless Body or Boundless Radio podcast earlier. We were talking about training quite a bit, which is quite nice. Which makes a nice change for, carnivore diet sort of ramblings usually. And he asked me about training and how hard I train and whatever, and I was like, yeah, I like to train quite hard and stuff, obviously, because it's fun.
Yeah.
But he mentioned what I use, and I was like, I use resistance machines mostly, so machine weights rather than barbells and things. I mentioned that I can go hell to leather as much as I want and drop the weight at nearly any point in the lift, and I'll be safe.
Yeah.
That makes it great fun.
And it is all about being safe, like you say. There's no point if you're doing like a dumbbell shoulder press, you kind of then, you can't really push it as much to failure, because like you say, if you can't push that weight up and then you drop it, well, where's it going to go? It's going to go on you. Whereas the machines, you've got that safety net of, no, I can push it. I can push that bit harder because I know it's not going to fall on me. And I think that's where our brain kind of clicks in of, we've got to be safe. Don't push for the next one because it might fall on you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Is that a lot?
I think so. That is it in our chat.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for your time. Apologise I was not here earlier in the preliminary part of the segment of Carnivore Ramblings tonight.
Sorry you had to have just me.
But I'm glad that Sophie was able to step in and host kindly and provide an excellent free of charge service to my small gathering of YouTube viewers.
Yeah.
Hopefully people watching this will hit the like button. Leave a sensible comment below.
Yeah.
Please
subscribe if you haven't.
Please don't tell me what to do in the comments. I do like discussions though, topic points to be mentioned, things like that. This is a productive forum to speak about training, diet, carnivore diet, or anything else that you like. And hopefully you guys can benefit from my knowledge, and hopefully I can learn something from you guys too. That's ultimately what we're trying to achieve here. Definitely.
And thank you for Jerome for coming on.
Of course, thank you for Jerome. His insights are always excellent. Very, very good.
We shall see you again next time.